Hello, everybody. We are delighted to have you here today. My name is Ashim Egunjobi. I'm the country head at Elevate Education, located out of Nigeria, and really excited to have so many of you joining in today. Before I kick off to introduce our special guest of the day, I'd like to just kind of set the scene a little bit. I read recently an article in Forbes magazine published about in September, and it talked about smart cities and the endeavor, the aspiration of the African continent implementing, designing smart cities. And the article sort of analyzed that smart cities in Africa, especially, had sort of fallen short of their aspirations. Now, we have with us today Lawrence Etta, the Chief Technology Officer of the City of Toronto, which is, if you didn't know, the fourth largest employer in North America for tech jobs, and also the fourth largest city in in North America. Now, as Chief Technology Officer, of course, there is a lot of information that we can gather from you today, Lawrence, especially with regards to the implementation of smart cities. And I believe that you are so well placed to kind of share with us also how emerging technologies such as AI, for instance, can in fact solve urban challenges in urban city planning and all of that. So Lawrence, welcome. It is really great to have you. And before we dive into kind of your career journey and talking about emerging tech, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Lawrence?
Yes, hello, and thank you so much, Ashim, and your host for hosting this session, and also for those who have joined in from all parts of the world. So my name is Lawrence Etta, Chief Technology Officer. I was born in Nigeria, in terms of for those who may or may not know, and I moved to the United Kingdom in 1982, and then from there, I continued till 1995, where I did my undergraduate degree, and then moved to Canada in 1997. And I've spent time in Canada, in various parts of Canada, Vancouver, Winnipeg, in Manitoba, in the prairies. And then I've spent a lot of time all over the United States, California, Arizona. So it's been a journey. And then 3 years ago, approximately September 2017, the city of Toronto approached me for my previous role, where I was the Deputy Chief Technology Officer, and I relocated from British Columbia to Ontario and through the city of Toronto. And then a year ago, I had the privilege and opportunity to be appointed the Chief Technology Officer. So it's been a journey in 3 continents, Africa, living in Europe, as well as now in North America, and now living in the fourth largest city in North America and the largest in Canada. So it's definitely been a journey, but all my family is still in Nigeria. I still have deep family roots in Nigeria, in that country.
Well, that's so interesting to hear. So, Lawrence, now that we know a little bit more about you, I know that you describe yourself as a techie with a tech background. So, do you want to just share for our listeners today and viewers kind of sort of that journey through tech and, how that all came about?
Yeah, certainly. I did a Bachelor of Science in Technology Management at Staffordshire University in the Midlands in the UK. I was always curious of technology, not predominantly going into computer science, because back in the 90s when I graduated, it was either computer science, but I found a degree that combined technology, systems analysis, human-centered, we now call human-centered design, ergonomics, etc. And that took me through a journey where I started off actually in retail management, Marks and Spencers for those who live in the UK. And then I went through my journey from literally from the ground up, computer systems administrator. I did some various sort of technology network services. And for some people who may be aware, I built the infrastructure for Sony PlayStation in North America, their network, their switches, their router. This was back in the 2000s. And from then, I went into pension and benefits, where I ran enterprise solutions in terms of Oracle, back office. and then moved to British Columbia, spent some time there. Then I moved into the Internet of Things space, IoT, industrial Internet of Things, and over to Toronto, now where there's so much. And in America, I spent time working on call centers, contact centers. I worked on solutions for the Affordable Care Act in terms of large infrastructure that was taking 160,000 calls a minute. So it's been a very rounded background, which I really feel fortunate because it helps me to have conversations with deeply technical people, but at the same time, business folks. And I also did a business background where I have a master's of business administration, so I could understand finance, budget, money, strategy, human resources. So it's a techie, but I like to see myself a little bit more rounded where I can apply some of those technology in terms of solving business and in this case, citizens and residents problems.
That's so great. I love that kind of diversity of your background. And so I'll dive straight into kind of a question that leads a little bit through to your background as well. Now, would you just give us a little bit of a background over the last few years of serving, in the city of Toronto and very much being involved in that whole smart city design and approach? Could you share with us a little bit around, what is the approach of the city? What are the challenges that they look to address, especially with emerging tech? And then we'll take it from there to the next question.
Certainly, the city has a very big ecosystem. So, as you can imagine, 2.9 million people and growing. Pre-pandemic is the fastest growing city in North America. So, what has occurred is that with that city, with that experience, we're a very large city. And what we've transitioned, smart cities was very focused on the technology. We've actually transitioned the name to connected communities because as a public servant, my role is to ensure that from technology, we are interacting with the residents in terms of solving city issues. So we've transitioned it up to certain principles that we use in terms of how we select the technology. The first principle is about a well-run city. We must run the city well, fiscally responsible, ensuring we're providing the serving population. So that's what a connected smart city means, number one. The second piece, everything we do has to have a social, economic, and environmental benefit to the city. The third component is ensuring that there is diversity and inclusion from an equity lens so that we're ensuring that we're addressing things like poverty, the movement of transportation of people, how people are adjusting in housing. The fourth component is ensuring democracy and transparency. We're a government, people need to feel that smart cities, connected communities are contributing to the democratic process in terms of that respect. And also ensuring that, and the fifth key principle is privacy and security. So when we look at things, for example, we're looking at sort of testing automated vehicles is one component, smart buildings, some of from our water plants, how can we really use data to come through and ensure that we're analyzing? And a project that's really close to certainly my perspective is that how are we using data through machine learning to predict and solve where we're building housing to deal with homelessness? How are we using some of those smart cities technology that allows us to predict in terms of our investment? Housing is a big component. The pandemic really has really shaped that from a homelessness standpoint. How can we address that? So those principles I mentioned is really coming from the private sector where it was very much a profit and loss conversation to really about solving residents, businesses, and ensuring that the ecosystem, everybody in this 2.9 million people feel that there is some level of equity that they're contributing to.
And thanks so much for that. So you touched on those kind of five core principles. Now, one of the things that I'd like to get out from you is obviously having your Nigerian heritage, kind of the background of being an African. Do you have any views with regards to, how can we take some of these lessons from the developed world and smart cities that have, in fact, have already been or are being implemented through into the continent? Say, well, we have certain infrastructural challenges that, we do need to deal with. And how can we use this smart city approach to, in fact, get to those challenges and solve those?
Yeah, I'll give some good use cases. I think in the developing countries, the advantage is that there's an advantage where that legacy infrastructure you're not held upon. So I'll give an example. You're from a phone standpoint, publicly switched telephone networks, you're not held upon. You can go straight to wireless technology. So from a developing country, you have that advantages. What I would state into the fact is that ensuring that you build what we call interoperable environments in the developing countries. So you start off ensuring your applications and the solutions you're building can interoperate and standards are set right off. It's very easy. It's a lot easier when you're doing that greenfield starting from than you're trying to deal with legacy. So in our environment, there's a lot of legacy I'm trying to transition to, and my team is dealing with that. Another component of an initiative that's really important is public, accessible, affordable Wi-Fi. So in the developing countries, if you're bringing big telecom providers or you're bringing other internet service providers, make sure that the affordability and the access is a key pillar to when you're rolling out this infrastructure, because that is about the people. And if you have Wi-Fi, if you have accessible Wi-Fi, then the entrepreneurs in Africa can do wonderful things and the world is interconnected. So those are just some examples that I would say: the interoperability, the standards, the fact that the developing countries aren't dealing with the legacy will create a lot of entrepreneurship and a lot of acceleration. And I've read certain entrepreneurs in Nigeria and other parts of Africa that are doing wonderful things. And I think that not being held back on that legacy really helps.
I love that point about the legacy systems that, in fact, Africa doesn't necessarily have. And of course, we all know that oftentimes we talk about leapfrogging when we talk about tech in Africa. And certainly we all hope that we will be able to do that with the smart cities as well. Now, one of the last questions I'd like you to ask is with regards to talent. Have there been certain initiatives that, for instance, in the city of Toronto, that you have in fact, partnered with private sector, or a public sector initiative to in fact ensure that as we build these smart cities, as we harness on the infrastructure and on the technology, we in fact have the talent to administer, to contribute to that infrastructure, and in fact to be able to work with it?
Yeah, so I'm very big on guiding principles. I work with a very large, talented team, and I have guiding principles within the division that speaks to, within my area of technology services, the 4 S's. So everything we do has to be stable, everything we do has to scale, everything has to have a solutions enterprise architecture to it, and everything has to be sustainable. So we built, for example, working from software engineering talent is very important. People who can really build strong code and release it. And during the pandemic, we built one of the case management tools that allowed our public health organizations to really accelerate. We did that in 6 weeks. So software engineering is important, analytical ability is important. Another initiative we worked very much with our partner Cisco is a digital canopy, where we are rolling out public Wi-Fi to 23 buildings for a year for underserved communities. So that's generally communities who can't afford it. So having the talent from network engineering is important. Knowing the networks, the connectivity is important. Also, the soft skills, relationship management, people management is important. The talent is very key. Now, what attracts that talent is ensuring that there's leadership where people want to join the public service. So we spend a lot of time on giving the value proposition, culture, why join the public service, so that those who want to transition maybe from the private sector or transition from other sectors feel that they're working with leadership that are passionate, have a strong methodology, have a strong approach, will remove bottlenecks, and really then we have been able to attract and retain some very talented people.
Thanks, Lawrence. Now, I see we have someone dialing in from Toronto, and she's actually asked a question here, which is, well, what are some of the actions that the City of Toronto has taken in its Smart City initiative before, during, and after the departure of Sidewalk Labs? So very specific.
Right, very specific. Well, our transportation area is rightly testing autonomous vehicles right now. I know they're doing a lot of good work. Our Toronto Water has lots of smart technology in how they're making, in terms of some of the Toronto metering, when they meter, very specific. So they're limiting waste on usage. Right now, post the sort of big sidewalks component, we are still looking at a viewpoint about how we take that space and build smart buildings. So right now, Toronto is working on what we call workforce optimization, reducing real estate space. So with that, you're going to have intelligent buildings in terms of buildings that can essentially look from heating, ventilation, and cooling, because we won't need as much of the footprint. So the Toronto has 44 divisions. There's lots of work going all across, and it is all tied into automation and how we do things much more effective and faster now that we're literally all working remotely.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lawrence. I think we're out of time. It's just about ticking down. I'm really glad that we got to chat today. I see there's a couple of more questions in the chat. So guys, keep the conversation going. We're all on the platform, take an opportunity to chat in the main chat so that Lawrence can see your questions still. Some great questions here talking about, other pressing challenges in the third world. And I really hope that we can continue the conversation going.
Thank you very much, Ashim. Thanks everyone to the
Thank
host, and
you.
enjoy the rest of the conference. Really looking forward to participating more. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. And you take care. And thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.